So one of the questions I get asked a lot is how do I keep all my camera gear, my phone, my navigation devices, and my lights charged when we go on bike tour or do an event like the Ochiko Overlander. So that's what we're going to talk about in this video. Welcome back, Pathless Peddlers, and if you're new to the channel, if you're into things like gravel riding, bike touring, the supple life, you have found your people, hit that subscribe button. So a couple of weeks ago, we did the Ochiko Overlander, which was challenging not only physically, but also electronically, if you will, insofar as I was trying to film the event, ride the event, and we were going in a place where there was just no electricity. I know that there are a lot of options out there in terms of charging electronics while cycling, big ones being a DYNAMO wheel or some kind of solar setup. But for me, what I have found to be the most cost effective and just effective when charging things is a simple battery bank. Something like this Rab Power brick. I know it's not the sexiest one. I'm sure some of you wanted a more exotic answer like some DYNAMO wheel and sine wave setup. But for me, this makes a lot of sense. A couple of the reasons I prefer just using a simple battery bank, this one in particular, is that it's just cost effective. This is a lot less expensive than having a DYNAMO wheel built, and then you have to get something that translates that power into a current that will run into your devices. So there's a lot of added cost. And if you're like us, where you have multiple bikes that you tour on, having many DYNAMO wheels built up is just not an option because it would just get so expensive. Another reason to use a battery like this is that you can charge multiple devices effectively. I think typically with a DYNAMO setup, you're charging either just the light or another device like the phone or a GPS. I know you can charge a battery as well, but in terms of just pure output, keeping all your devices topped up, a battery is really the way to go. I haven't played too much with solar, but in my experience, it's very rare that we do a bike tour where it's 100% sunny and solar can reach its peak efficiency. So again, something like a simple battery bank, much less expensive and way more effective. Granted, there are times when you want completely off-the-grid solutions, and that's when you have to be really honest about the type of touring that you do and the type of trip you're gonna take. Are you truly gonna be in a place where there is absolutely no opportunity to charge a battery bank up for like 4 or 5 days? In that case, if you're running into that a lot, then definitely go with a DYNAMO. But for me, I know typically when we go on a ride or do an event, we're always going to hit some kind of power source at least within 2 to 3 days. And if that's kind of the frequency in which you'll encounter civilization, then something like a battery bank would work just fine. So why did I choose this one? I'm gonna link to this specific one in the description below. There are many kinds. So this is a Rab Power battery bank, and it's a 26,800 milliamp hour battery. Pretty much the biggest battery that you're allowed to legally fly with. So I decided to opt for this one because I knew on some trips there might be a return flight, and I didn't want to get a battery that was so big that I couldn't fly with it as a carry-on item. A couple of other unique features about this: it has a variety of different ways you can charge devices. So with typical USB ports, micro USB, and USB-C. This battery is unique insofar as it charges and also lets out current via the USB-C port. So that means that you can charge devices like your laptop. It also charges via the USB-C port. If you have a MacBook, if you have a current MacBook laptop, you can use that same power brick to connect this to a wall and charge the battery up. Quick note, this does not include that power brick. You can buy a version of this separately with that brick. And because of that USB-C charging, it does tend to charge faster than if we're just trickling in via the regular USB ports. So during the Ochiko Overlander, I used the battery to charge lots of devices, everything from my phone to my GPS to the Sony Action Cam to a GoPro Hero Session. Every day at the end of the day, I would kind of do an inventory of where all the batteries were at, and I would set up the charger in the tent accordingly. One pro tip about using batteries or just charging electronics in general when you're on tour is that if it gets really cold, that has a tendency to just kill your batteries, completely discharge them. So a good pro tip is to keep the charging station under a sleeping bag while it's charging, and also when you sleep. When overnight temperatures get really, really cold, I tend to keep all my electronics in the sleeping bag with me, or in this case, my quilt, just so that the body warmth will kind of help insulate the batteries and keep them from dying when it gets cold. I think by the end of 4 days, I was just below 50%. And that was after charging the phone, the GPS, and multiple camera batteries over the course of a couple of days. If there is one downside to this battery, I will say it's slightly on the portly side, but I mean, I think that's kind of par for course for a battery this big. It weighs just over a pound. I know, don't freak out. So just over 423 grams, I believe, but definitely less heavy than equivalent batteries that have a metal casing. This is all plastic construction, so don't drop it. But because of that, it is a little bit lighter weight. You know, it might not be the perfect solution depending on the kind of trip that you do, but if you are doing a bike trip of some sort where you need to charge multiple devices but will encounter opportunities to top off the battery intermittently, like say within 3 days, 4 days, then this is definitely one to check out. But as always, that's what I think. What do you guys think? How do you keep all your electronic goodies charged when you're on bike tour? Let me know in the comments below. If you have any other questions, leave those in the comments. And as always, keep the supple side down.